Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to be going over details from our August 20th officer-involved shooting. And before we turn it over to Deputy Commander Kyle HARTSOCK, we're going to talk about, just a few things that, stand out in my mind about this incident. Once again, we're dealing with a repeat offender. We're dealing with a possible homicide suspect. We're dealing with somebody who's been in and out of the criminal justice system. And I want to thank the mayor for creating the Metro Crime Initiative, but also all the participants who have been in this. This is the key for us making our community safe. This is the key to us changing the things that need to be changed within the criminal justice system. And I'm thankful that the citizen was not killed this day and that the citizen is safe that was involved in this incident. And my heart goes out to this person, because I'm sure that this is a traumatic event that they'll live with for the entirety of their life. And I'm also grateful that our officers were safe that day, and that none of them were injured. As you see, this situation quickly escalated, and the individual was armed with an assault rifle. So turn it over to Deputy Commander. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Deputy Commander Kyle HARTSOCK. I'm with the Criminal Investigations Division, which helps supervise the multi-agency task force, which is the group of detectives from the Albuquerque Police Department, Broadway County Sheriff's Department, and New Mexico State Police and the DA's office who investigate these incidents. This critical incident community briefing will provide you with information of an attempt to arrest a person with a felony warrant who was armed, which ended in an officer-involved shooting. You're about to see relevant video footage and learn about other evidence and police procedures related to the case so you can have a better understanding of what occurred, based on what we know right now. The police department conducts very thorough criminal and use of force investigations, which typically require investigators to interview multiple witnesses, review hours of video footage, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. We're still at the early stages of this investigation, which can often take several months or longer to complete. Our understanding of this incident may change as additional evidence is collected, analyzed, and reviewed. We also do not draw any conclusions today about whether the officers acted consistently with our policies and the law until all the facts are known and the investigation is complete. A word of caution: the images and video may be disturbing. When police use force to arrest a subject or defend against an attack, it can be graphic and difficult to watch. In addition, there may be strong language by those shown in the video. The two officers involved in this shooting are Sergeant Josh Richards and Detective Luke McPeak, both at the time and are still currently in units that have sensitivity to their photos being released, so we're not releasing their photos at this time. Sergeant Richards was hired by the Albuquerque Police Department in 2008. He does have one prior officer-involved shooting in 2016. He's currently assigned to the Gun Violence Reduction Unit as the supervisor. Detective McPeak was hired by the police department in 2012. He does have two prior officer-involved shootings, one in October of 2013 and one in December of 2013. His current assignment is the Investigative Services Division as part of the ATF Task Force. The incident we're going to talk about today occurred on August 20th, 2021 in the Valley Area Command near Broadway and Gibson, Southeast. On July 10th, 2021, so we're going to go back, about a month earlier, a homicide occurred at 1400 Cardenas, Southeast, where Adam Torres was shot and killed. A person of interest was developed by the homicide unit in that investigation, and that subject was found to have a felony probation warrant out for his arrest unrelated to the homicide investigation. A plan was made for one of our specialized apprehension units to locate this individual, arrest him for their unrelated warrant to the homicide, which would allow homicide detectives to possibly further the investigation into the death of Mr. Torres. The person of interest that we were looking for lived near 1811 Arno Street Southeast, which is where this officer-involved shooting started. 26-year-old David Martinez was the person of interest in the homicide case, and at the time of the shooting was wanted for a felony probation violation warrant. He was staying at the Arno address at this time, and he is a resident of Albuquerque. We're looking at a map of the area where the shooting took place. Detectives with our specialized apprehension unit observed Mr. Martinez at the home of 1811 Arno Street Southeast, entering a car and starting to pull out of the driveway to leave. They approached the property on police vehicles and on foot. Mr. Martinez changed directions inside the vehicle, drove through the yard and through a fence in the back part of the yard. He got out of the car, armed with a rifle, and started to flee police on foot. Mr. Martinez was given commands to surrender, and we also deployed 3 rounds of a 40mm less than lethal launcher at him, which I'll describe in a second. But he did not surrender. Instead started to climb over fences and go towards Broadway while holding an assault rifle. Other detectives were already on Broadway. Other detectives were already on Broadway and saw Mr. Martinez armed with a rifle running into traffic, which was now slowing and stopping. At this point, an officer-involved shooting occurred. Our air unit was up at the time, assisting in the apprehension of Mr. Martinez, and recorded this incident. I'm going to play that video for you now. One thing to keep in mind, the radio transmissions are garbled on the recording. That is the way it came in. You'll be able to hear those transmissions on another video. As I said earlier, our department equipped some officers with 40mm less than lethal launchers. The 40mm launcher is a shoulder-fired less than lethal weapon, which uses a propellant cartridge to launch kinetic energy impact munition. These projectiles are made from soft foam rubber, thus reducing the risk of penetration. The 40mm launcher is a single-shot weapon and accurate up to 120 feet. Detective Hill, also with the apprehension unit, who did not fire his gun, did fire this less than lethal launcher at Mr. Martinez. Here is his body camera recording device. I want you to keep in mind that these videos, when they start, they go back 30 seconds and capture that video as well, but it's captured without audio. So you're not going to hear sound for about the first 30 seconds.
I don't got him on this side.
Table turn around out to Washington.
Hold it, Johnson! Hold AK. That's an AK. He's still going west. He's got an AK rifle. Got it. Here, watch out. Watch out.
It's an AK-47. Broadway. How are you?
Sergeant Richards was on Broadway Boulevard in his vehicle, and he did fire his gun. Here is his video.
Alright. John, you still running up and down? You just tripped in the yard at 1848 Broadway where there's a power plant. Here's armed with an AK-47.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Don't move! Don't move! Don't move! Hold! Get out of the way! Stop! Hold! That's right! Shoot right! Shoot right!
Detective McPeak was also recording and on Broadway in his vehicle nearby Sergeant Richards. Here's his video.
Don't move! Get out of the way! Stop! Hold! We gotta get it done. Right! Step right! Step right! Alright.
This crime scene photo shows the rifle that Mr. Martinez had at the time of the shooting. This photo is showing that one of the police rounds did hit a stucco wall behind Mr. Martinez as he ran. And this photo shows the 2 magazines that were part of the rifle and the ammunition that was inside. The rifle was loaded when it was recovered. Again, over the next several months, the Albuquerque Police Department will continue to investigate and analyze this incident. We will continue interviewing any new witnesses that come forward and complete any forensic test. After the investigation is complete, our Force Review Board will forward the findings to the Superintendent of Police Reform to determine if this incident met the high standards of the Albuquerque Police Department. The MATF detectives will forward their case to the District Attorney's Office, who will make any determination of criminal charges. And at this point, I can help answer any questions.
The stucco wall that you said that got hit, was that with the like actual bullet, or was that with the less lethal round?
An actual bullet.
So were they shooting at him at a different point other than when he actually got shot?
There's 2 different rounds that are fired.
so they shot at him when he was running as well, but they missed him? I'm confused about the placement of the wall and the placement of his body.
It's in the background in police terms, but there's houses behind him as he comes on the sidewalk. The wall that struck is one of those houses behind him.
Okay.
So at least one round hits that wall, and at least one round hits Mr. Martinez.
Okay, so only those-
Unsure which round from which officer.
Okay, but only those two officers fired, and they only fired at that time when he was.
Yes, that's correct. The firing happens on Broadway, nowhere else.
Okay.
Can you describe what Martinez was doing when the officers opened fire on him? Because, you know, he runs up to that red truck, and as I understand it, he was trying to carjack the guy in the red truck. Can you talk about what officers saw that maybe-
Sure. Without myself drawing conclusions, I can tell you what both the officers who fired stated in their interview was that they saw and believed that he was going to carjack that red truck that was coming to a stop and then at a stop at the time, and they were afraid for the safety of that individual as well as the general public that was around and themselves.
Were they undercover? Those two officers, were they undercover?
They were wearing police markings that you can see in the air support video.
What about the gun? Where did that come from?
That's still part of the investigation. We are test firing it and doing, e-traces on it, but that's still part of the criminal investigation, so we don't have all those answers just yet.
And then what about the homicide? Is that, what made him a person of interest, and is that case now considered clear?
Case is not considered closed, it's still open and active, and I'm sorry, but right now that's all we're gonna say on it because there's still other leads we're following up on, but we're confident to call him a person of interest in that case.
Did Martinez die at the scene? Because I'm looking at there was a criminal complaint filed and he was charged, so was he like charged and then passed away later?
No, good question, I didn't cover that. No, he is still alive, as a matter of fact.
Oh.
It
It
says
says,
fatally.
yeah, it says in here he was fatally wounded.
Apologize, that's a
Oh.
mistake on our
Oh,
part.
okay.
He is alive.
I did talk to his mom, and she said that like a couple months ago, or like right after this happened, and she said that he was like basically brain dead at that point. Do you have an update on?
Our understanding is he is capacitated to the point that we can't have a fruitful interview with him, that he is still in, inpatient medical care at this point.
Okay.
That much I can tell you. We're no longer guarding him.
Did the less lethal option, did that hit him?
I don't have the answer to that right now. It might be able to be determined by the investigation, it might not.
Do we know if Martinez fired any rounds like at the victim in the truck or at officers?
So far in the investigation, we don't have evidence that he fired the gun in the 2-minute clips that we saw.
Chief Medina, you talked about some like changes to the criminal justice system that this case highlights. What specifically would that be?
I think that, we really need to work on keeping individuals in custody. I think it's really easy right now. And we see the coverage every day in the media. And I think the media does stories, weekly about the fact that somebody's been released from custody. And that release from custody could come in the form of somebody being released early from prison or somebody being released pending trial. And I think that we need to be very cautious on how we're releasing individuals back into the community and our ability to monitor and ensure that they're not going down this bad path. This individual is involved in criminal behavior 1 month before. He was on parole or probation, and it should have been flagged a little bit earlier with some type of visits and ensuring that this person was following. We had been following this individual for a period of time before they were able to make contact with them, and we need to make sure that everybody involved is also following through and monitoring these individuals as they're out in the community. This goes back to our stance on 24-hour monitoring with pretrial releases. We want these individuals monitored. We want them to be contacting and flagging law enforcement as soon as possible when these individuals are no longer following the rules, so that we're able to take them back into custody.
The criminal activity that you mentioned, is that the homicide or is that a different?
The homicide. Yes.
Can you share where Martinez was hit? Based on the injuries you explained, was it once in the head or?
I don't have that information. Kyle may be able to have it. But one more thing to follow up on reference, you know, it wasn't only the homicide that this individual was involved in, and I think Kyle could talk about it a little bit more, but this person was also the suspect in several stolen motor vehicles. And it once again brings back that analogy that we've talked about, where we have armed subjects involved in theft of motor vehicles, and they're committing crimes while they're utilizing a stolen motor vehicle. But he did have 2 suspected stolen motor vehicles.
Yes, stolen vehicles as well as armed robberies, possible carjacking, which are still under investigation. And to answer your question, she was shot in the head.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you. Do you know just once or?
At least once, sometimes hard to tell.
All right, thanks.
Okay.